What's up, Bills Mafia? No, you are not mistaken. I know we were just live on this channel twice today with a couple of podcasts getting you ready for Houston Texans week, but it is time for an emergency podcast as it just came down. The NFL has levied a 4-game suspension on Bills pass rusher Von Miller, stemming from domestic violence allegations. Last year, if you remember, he turned himself into police after an incident with his pregnant girlfriend. No charges were ever filed, but it appears the NFL did their due diligence and are now levying a 4-game suspension on the pass rusher. We're going to get into what we know, what it means for the Bills over the next 4 games on this emergency quick podcast. Ryan Talbot, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, and you're right. I mean, this will be a quick one, but the NFL, when they decide to, lay down these punishments, these suspensions, there's no rhyme or reason for when they do it, why it wasn't done at the start of the season. The league just kind of releases these as they feel necessary.
Yeah, and it comes at a time which it's interesting because you've watched Rashee Rice playing in Kansas City and, wondering week after week, like, all right, is he going to be suspended for everything that happened in the offseason? Obviously, the vehicle incident, Tyreek Hill's past comes into mind. I've seen a couple comments about that. There isn't a lot of rhyme or reason. I know the first question that everybody's asking is, can Von Miller appeal this? And, a quick look into it. When it comes to the personal conduct policy, the commissioner has full and final say over discipline under the policy. The commissioner can change any discipline that is imposed, and players have no further appeal rights. So it doesn't appear that Von Miller can appeal this ruling. I don't know why it's happening now. Obviously, it's something that if you go back to the summertime, one of the first questions Brandon Beane was asked when we got to camp was an update on the Von Miller domestic violence incident. He said that there was no new news to report. The Bills have been steadfast in saying that the due diligence that they have done made them feel good about the decision to keep him on the roster. But now we're sitting here looking at the bottom line is that, their big money pass rusher is going to miss 4 important games here over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, it's a big 4-game stretch. There's no denying that. Houston, the Jets, back to back coming up. I do feel like these are games that the Bills can survive without him. Looking down the road after that, you have Tennessee and you have Seattle. Seattle looking great, by the way. So these will be games where the pass rush of this team is going to be tested, and they're going to need some guys on this roster to really step up.
Yeah, and I think that's the best place to start is like, what's the immediate effect or where we should spend our time here? What's the immediate effect on this passing or this pass rush? You go back to last week, Ryan, and I know it's been a great story on Von Miller the first couple of weeks of the season, right? 3 games, 3 sacks, everything seemed to be trending in the right direction. I thought it was interesting yesterday when Sean McDermott was asked about Von Miller and why he only played 9 snaps in this game. And he's like, part of it is managing the snap count, which it didn't really feel like they were too interested in doing that the first couple of weeks. But that aside, he said that because of the way the game goes and the situations that the Bills were presented, they were running, there weren't a lot of long third downs. They didn't feel like getting Von Miller on the field to defend against their run game was something that they were interested in doing. And I don't know, Ryan, I mean, that's a little bit of a troubling place to be at if your big time pass rusher, I know he's a pass rusher, but can't be out there or can't be trusted to defend the run in a big time game, physical game against the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, it's a concern for sure. I think part of it is the Bills have been working on his pitch count in terms of how they've used him. He hasn't been starting games. He's been coming in on big third down situations. Part of it, too, is the Bills didn't get the Ravens in a third down situation for quite some time in that game. And the Ravens, by the time they kind of got out to a comfortable lead, maybe the Bills also decided it wasn't time to get him out there. It wasn't worth getting him out there. But you're still paying this guy a lot of money. I know he reworked the contract in the offseason. I get that he's coming back off of a serious injury and you want to keep him fresh for late in the season in the playoffs. But 9 snaps against the Ravens was definitely an eyebrow-raising number when you looked at it.
So you look at what the Bills have now at edge rusher, and obviously all eyes on Greg Rousseau for this Sunday against the Houston Texans and over the next 4 games. He's coming off of a 0 pressure game against the Baltimore Ravens. Pass rush grade, according to Pro Football Focus, what do we got here? 50, which probably his lowest of the season. I don't have his entire season in front of me, but that's pretty bad. Dewan Smoot played 27 snaps. AJ Epinesa, 24 snaps. Ryan, I think this is going to be potentially a huge opportunity for rookie Javon Solomon, who on a very limited amount of snaps this season has looked the part of what the Bills drafted him to be. Now, can you trust him in the run game? Like, where do you feel comfortable putting him out there? I don't know. He's been a physical presence when he has been on the field. This is an advantageous matchup here against the Houston Texans, where you're going to want to get him rushing the quarterback, CJ Stroud. Maybe not as worried about their run game. I know they went for 159 in week 1. We'll get more into that as the week goes on. But yeah, I think this could be a huge opportunity for Solomon.
Worst case scenario, you put him into the Von Miller role. You put him out there on the field in those obvious pass rush situations, the third and medium, third and long type of plays where you lean on Greg Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, and Dwayne Smoot on the rundowns and use Solomon wisely in that regard, because you're right. The PFF grades have been very strong for him. He has made an impact when given an opportunity. Snaps have been limited and hard to come by, obviously injured the first 2 weeks of the season with an oblique injury, but he's shown and flashed at times. So this is a huge opportunity for Javon Solomon coming up here. It's a huge opportunity for a lot of these guys. You know, Greg Rousseau, the way he jumped onto the scene in week 1, we haven't seen much from him since then. This is an opportunity for him to reestablish himself. I thought Epinesa had some nice moments in the game last week and in a few games this season too. And then Smoot, minus the boneheaded play where he got caught with the knee to the helmet. This is a chance for him to get more reps, as well as they need to kind of get him up to game speed after missing some time with injuries as well.
Thank you for watching. Obviously, an emergency podcast here, getting into the Von Miller news that just dropped. Big surprise. If you're just tuning in on the live platforms, thank you. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. This episode and all episodes are brought to you by Tops Friendly Markets. Right now is the rush to the Tops Red Zone. Get game day ready with Tops. Score big savings, winning recipes, and everything you need for the ultimate game day experience. Head to the Tops Red Zone in-store for all your game day essentials and more. Ryan, you mentioned that you're maybe not as concerned about this stretch with Von Miller missing. The one area that I think I do have a little bit of concern is that because of the quarterbacks you're facing over the next couple of games, specifically these next 2, you are going to need your finishers. And outside of that first game for Greg Rousseau, Von Miller's been the only guy that really has been finishing, at the quarterback. CJ Stroud last week, a ton of times, it felt like 19 pressures. The JJ, I'll give you an update on. Let me break in here. We'll get back to this. If you're just tuning in right now, Von Miller's been suspended for 4 games. If you remember last year, he was arrested, turned himself in to Dallas police for a domestic violence incident with his pregnant girlfriend at the time. No charges ultimately were filed, but the NFL has been holding an ongoing investigation. The news came down today that they're levying a 4-game suspension on Miller. But back to the concern I have, who is going to step up with Von Miller out? And down the stretch, CJ Stroud last week, I mentioned 19 pressures, but only sacked twice. When you get back there, when you get pressure, you have to bring him down. And I look around this room. I obviously think Greg Rousseau has to step up. Beyond him, I have a lot of question marks.
No, and that's fair. And I guess I'm thinking more big picture with Von Miller. I still anticipate him playing on this team. I saw some questions in here about the contract. We can get more into down the road contract with Von Miller, but he's going to come back, and it's going to be week 9, Miami Dolphins, big divisional game. He's going to be fresher for the end of the season stretch. You're going to be able to count on him come playoff time. Being without a guy that's been arguably your most consistent pass rusher is certainly a concern over these next 4 games. But when you look at, you would hope that the Bills can get a little bit creative in this scenario too, in terms of blitzing a little bit more and sending guys if they're not getting home from the defensive line, whether it's off the edge or the interior, where they've been very hit and miss on the interior as well this season. So, you would hope that with Houston, you could figure out some things. I know Aaron Rodgers has a little bit of mobility left in his game. He's shown it at times, but man, he was moving slowly after that game against Denver. I think that there's going to be opportunities with that offensive line for the Bills to be able to get some hits on Rodgers without Von Miller in the lineup in that game. When you're looking at, Tennessee, no offense to Tennessee, coming off of their first win of the season, whether it's Will Levis or Mason Rudolph, that seems like an okay game to be without a Von Miller. Seattle, though, is a whole different matter in itself. They have a really good rushing attack. They have Geno Smith looks great there at quarterback. That'll certainly be a tough one without Von Miller.
The Bills announced the signing of Zion Logue. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. A 6th-round pick for the Atlanta Falcons was released, signed back to their practice squad. Georgia defensive tackle, 6'6", 315, 320, fits into the model that the Bills look for when it comes to athletic size and potential power, everything like that. Kind of reminds you size-wise of maybe that Jordan Phillips component. He's signed to the 53-man roster, Ryan. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a role as early as Sunday, only because Austin Johnson played at the beginning of this game this last week, and down the stretch, they just chose to keep him on the bench. It was Dwayne Carter who went down the rest of the way. They pluck him off the practice squad, likely using the roster spot that's been created by the Von Miller suspension to add him to the roster.
Yeah, and I'd like to see him on early downs, especially if you're worried about the run. Get him in there, get him mixed in. I don't think he'll see significant reps in his first game as a member of the Bills if he is active, but you do want to work on the depth of that defensive tackle position. Austin Johnson, like you said, was sitting on the bench for a good chunk of that game against the Ravens. He's been very hit and miss so far this season. Dwayne Carter's coming off of his highest grade from Pro Football Focus, but he's also been up and down a lot. This isn't what you expect from a rookie, but get these young guys in, get them some reps on the interior, and then off the edge, like we've already said a few times. This is a big opportunity for Greg Rousseau in terms of proving he deserves an extension with this team, proving that he's worth a big money type of contract. This is his show now in terms of the edge rushers that this team currently possesses.
Pops Mafia in the comments asking for an update on Terrell Bernard and Taron Johnson. Talking to Sean McDermott yesterday, I get why you asked that question. I mean, you're going to be down Von Miller. You're going to be down potentially Bernard and Johnson against a Houston offense that, from a passing perspective is among the best in the league. They have 2 top 5 wide receivers right now. Nico Collins is absolutely dominating the NFL. I talked to Jonathan Alexander about him a few minutes ago. But Bernard, to me, is the guy that has a chance to play. And I'm not saying Johnson doesn't, but Bernard, it seemed like Sean McDermott was a little bit more hopeful for. He's going to practice, they think, in a more pronounced way this week. He was in the red non-contact last week. We'll see if that comes off tomorrow. But my early feeling is that Bernard probably more likely than Johnson.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the way that Sean McDermott, I don't want to say was hinting at it, because he's very cautious with his players in terms of returning, but it seems to be trending in that direction. But we'll wait and see how it all plays out this week. Both could potentially get time on the field. We did see Terrell Bernard in that red non-contact jersey twice last week, as we've mentioned. So seems to be he's getting a little bit closer. That'd be a big boost for this team. Houston certainly, though, while effective on the ground, they have a great passing attack. So it'll be interesting to see if the Bills can get that type of pressure on CJ Stroud that they're going to need to on Sunday at 1 p.m.
Oh, man, we got a lot more to do this week, Ryan. This was the quick emergency podcast to get you the latest, some early thoughts on this Von Miller development. We'll obviously be inside the building tomorrow, talk to Sean McDermott and players and how they're going to combat this loss, not only against Houston, but over the next 4 weeks. We'll bring you everything, and we'll have the Wednesday Staples Show tomorrow. Final word, Ryan Talbot.
Yeah, final word. I mean, while I still expect Von Miller to play out the rest of the season, this will likely affect his guarantees going forward. Had he been suspended, the NFL had put something out that, or multiple media outlets put out that guarantees would have been voided for this season. Obviously, he's already played in multiple games this year, but this will definitely have a trickle-down effect on the remainder of his contract with the Bills.
Mike Ginnetti put out Miller will forfeit $333,000 of his $1.5 million salary per his 4-game suspension. Before the renegotiation that happened this offseason, Miller held a 17.1 base salary, which would have resulted in a $3.81 million of forfeiture today. So it appears that he is going to lose less money because of the reworked contract. And obviously he still has those major sack incentives Interesting development. We'll learn more over the next 24 hours. We'll hear from the Bills, which still, to my understanding, have not put out a statement yet. I've reached out to ask for one. So stay tuned on all of the platforms and become an insider. 716-528-6727. We'll be passing along the latest on there. It's brought to you by Carrie C. Beyer, attorney with the law offices of Francis M. Litro, located at 237 Main Street in Buffalo, New York. If you or anyone you know is seriously injured, give Carrie a call, 716. I forgot the number. I don't have the read in front of me. I almost did the whole thing, Ryan Talbot. That would have been pretty good. But we're going to get out of here. Emergency pod. We'll be back on Wednesday. Take care, everybody.